What's going on, guys? Welcome to another edition of the NarikChase channel, and in this video we're going to be reviewing one of my all-time favorite television shows, Being Human US version. US version is based off the UK version of the same name. This vampire, this ghost, and this werewolf just staying in this home together, just trying to live out a normal life as if they were humans. And that's where a lot of the great content comes from in this show. Before I saw the BBC version, I saw this version, and I really have to admit I really like this version. There's a lot to really appreciate when it comes to this show. Now, the story is basically born from the characters of who we're actually following. We're really following these main three characters, even though there's a fourth edition that comes on later on. We have Aiden, Josh, and Sally. Aiden is this vampire who has a really dark past, and he's trying to just live a normal life, to just forget about the bad things he's done in his past. Josh is a newly transformed werewolf who's dealing with this transformation and how it's affecting the isolation with him and his family and friends. And then we have Sally, who's just been this ghost, who's just been isolated and not be able to talk to anyone until Aiden and Josh comes in the home. So there is just this wonderful dynamic that's just built up around these three characters, especially just the different developing arcs that branch out and then eventually come back together with the characters. If there's one thing that the show just really does a great job of, is just focusing on these great, deep, and well-written characters. They're all really likable. Yes, they have a lot of problems that's going on in their life, and a lot of it isn't necessarily the fact that they're supernatural creatures. There's a lot of things when it comes to relationships, being pushed away from your family, being taken away from your family, accepting this bomb that's been dropped in your life. We have a sudden change. There's just a lot of that that's going on with these characters, and that's what makes them so relatable and so likable. Now, we do end up getting a fourth edition later on in the series in the form of Nora Sargent, who's actually a newly transformed werewolf, and she's actually a pretty likable character as well. She does a great job of bringing a more grounded feel to the group, especially considering she's the most recent addition to the group and to be the most recently introduced to the supernatural, which is great because it does a great job of balancing out the dynamic between these characters. So it's great that the dynamic is there, and it's just a wonderful experience watching these characters just deal with these different situations. Now, the story is actually pretty interesting, and I like the fact that it's not afraid to kind of branch out and start doing its own little thing. There are things that happen and concepts that are in this show that aren't actually been perceived in other shows, which I really liked. I like how each actual species does have some kind of culture, some kind of hierarchy. There is something there for each one of these, and it's interesting seeing how these characters are actually put in these situations. For example, you learn more about the vampire hierarchy and how it's kind of embedded in kind of the government, and I think that's actually pretty cool. You learn a bit more of the hierarchy when it comes to the werewolves and how their family dynamic works out as well, which is really good. You learn a lot about ghosts, and I love the concept of purgatory that they put in this, and just the different avenues that they took when it comes to death and life, and how ghosts interact with each other and the afterlife, and how they interact with the living. There's just so much there that's just actually just well written and really well thought out. There was one issue I had with the BBC version, the UK version, it felt really inconsistent with these different species and how they were established. But I think that this one is a lot more grounded, so it feels better connected. I really appreciated that. Now, again, with the stories, there are a lot of really interesting stories. All of them are really dramatic. They're all do build character development, which I really found really interesting. I like how diverse the stories feel as well. For each situation, it's a different feel. Sometimes they're exceptionally big, life or death, and there are also these situations and stories that are more internal, which I really like and really thought was a really good addition to building these characters and following these characters on this grandiose adventure of theirs. Towards the later half of the third season and the fourth season, things get a little bit kooky with some of the stories, and it's like things come out a little bit left field, and it does feel like they were trying to reach for new direction. I do like some of the concepts that they did introduce during the third and fourth season, but I do feel at some point that they were reaching. Now, I will say this. Now, perhaps if they had different writers, perhaps if they had taken a bit more of a break, they could have came back and addressed and built upon more about what was going on with these characters. But I think that it does, for the most part. It ain't gonna, and I'm not gonna lie, one of the best endings to a series. It was very emotional. I was actually in tears because you watch these characters just grow and develop with each other, and you watch them just go through all of these hardships and all of these good times and just do everything together, and then just everything just comes to an end. And if there's one thing a show should do, and it tells you if it's a good show or not, is if it ends and there is such an emotional attachment to these characters, there's just parting with them is just an emotional ride. So there is definitely that. Really enjoyed a lot of the different concepts and the stories. I really enjoyed the humor and the wit that's between these characters. There could be a really serious situation, and then somebody will kick off a good one-liner. And normally I would say, okay, that's a bit too much, but it felt really natural, especially between these characters, because you know what's going on, you know their personality, so it doesn't feel forced, it doesn't feel cheesy, anything. It actually feels like a natural reaction. So I really appreciated the writing when it came to that as well. There are a fuck ton of characters to this show, and a lot of them are really interesting. They're really cool. They provide a great support for the series. Like, there's this one vampire actor I heard was actually a pretty cool cat. And he's like one of these bad guys that's not really a bad guy. That, yes, he is a bad guy, but the man is really cool. Like, he has a lot of charisma. At the same time, he has presence. And I really appreciated that about this character. He was like a really cool villain. He wasn't just this kill everybody, I gotta have all ultimate power or anything. He was just like a real chill type bad guy. And he was like, okay, if the wheel isn't broken, don't try to fix it type. So I really enjoyed that about his character. It was one of my favorites. When it comes to the visual effects of the show, yeah, there's a lot of good when it comes to the practical effects. The vampire effects are really solid. The ghost effects are actually really cool. Now, I will admit that some of the werewolf transformations and the werewolf designs, even though they look cool, you know, they're kind of obvious as CGI, but it's not like bad, but it's just noticeable, you know. And I think that they did an interesting take with the werewolf transformations as well as the designs. Would I recommend this television series to anyone? Hell yes. This is one of my favorite freaking television shows. It's great if you like just down-to-earth characters. It's not the Vampire Diaries. It's not that werewolf show. It's not Twilight. It's not Underworld. Yeah, there's action in it. There's violence. Yes, people die. There's a lot of people that die in this show. There's also humor. There's also depth. There's also emotion. There's drama where a character has to either deal with something supernatural or have to deal with issues in society. Like, it's like a really broad, very diverse show. The characters, you'll grow to love them. Yeah, there'll be some times where you feel like, okay, they're being stupid because they're being stubborn, making these dumb decisions here and there. Sally is kind of one of the characters. Like, I love Sally. I really enjoyed her character, but I feel like sometimes her character was a bit stubborn, and that led to her doing making bad decisions. But she's still a really likable character. I have to just freaking give it to the cast. The cast was freaking amazing. I really enjoyed every single one of the main characters. Sam Witwer, you got Meaghan Rath, you got Sam Hutington, you got Kristen Hager. Like, I really enjoyed them. They were just fantastic. The supporting cast were just as awesome. I really enjoyed all of the characters. I really enjoyed performances. There is not much more to say about this series outside of it was freaking awesome. Now, for the final verdict, in the end, Being Human, the US version, is actually a solid watch. It's great if you want memorable characters, if you want depth and emotion in your story, if you want to just see great interactions. There are some storylines that do feel like they could have been worked out a little bit better. There's also some moments where it's like, okay, the character kind of made a dumb decision, being a little bit stubborn, and the CGI might not be like the best. It's a shit ton better than the UK version. I'll tell you that. The werewolves look a hell of a lot better. The show has so much more going for it than that. It has great characters. It has an interesting story. It has a great setup and world building. It has fantastic performances. It does have a really good soundtrack as well. I mean, there's some really noticeable songs that you get, and the themes are just really good. There's violence, there's action, there's humor, there's drama, there's just depth, good writing, witty dialogue. I have to say, in the end, Being Human, the US version, definitely deserves a 4 out of 5. Borderline perfect. If I could do like a 4.5 out of 5, I would do it. I really wanted to push it up there to that 5, but again, I did like the third and fourth seasons, but there were some things that kind of took it down. But that finale definitely just made up for all of it, made this entire journey just freaking awesome. So guys, in the comment section below, let me know, what are your thoughts of Being Human, the US version? Who is your favorite character? And also, what season is your favorite season? And also, what concept did you like more? The vampire concept, the werewolf concept, or the ghost concept? Be sure to hit that like, share, subscribe, and that notification button to get the best of what's going on this channel. And stay tuned, guys, on Thursdays for more videos. Catch you guys later. NarikChase, signing out.